Hey guys, welcome to the Manchester United News channel. Subscribe to the channel to not miss any news, leave your like, and share, you are very important for the growth of the channel. Let's go to the video.
It's sometimes an easy phrase to band about, isn't it? Lost half of the dressing room, but most of the time half of the dressing room are behind the manager because they're not getting picked.
Yeah.
So what does this mean? How damaging is it?
I'm actually quite shocked that it's come out, especially after the season that they had last season. When you think they got third place, they won a cup as well, and there was a lot of, stories around how happy the players were because there was discipline, there was, a camaraderie in the side that there hadn't been in previous years. But I think now we're seeing where they're not getting the results. Some players aren't playing. Some players that have been favoured in the past, like Varane, is not playing much games. We obviously know what's happening with Sancho as well. So I think that maybe those type of relationships have affected, how Erik ten Hag is seen in and amongst the dressing room. But at the same time, it's like we've seen this story with so many other managers at United. So I don't know whether it's something that is going to end here or how he's going to fix it.
Yeah, he was brought in because he could provide the discipline that perhaps it was argued wasn't there before. But does it look like in performances that there's a fracture or a disconnect between what Ten Hag wants to do or is trying to get from his players and what they're actually putting in on the pitch?
I think the game at the weekend against Newcastle is a prime example because you watch Newcastle and that's probably everything the Manchester United fans want their team to be. A team that are playing with desire, with a blueprint, that are playing for the manager and playing for their club and playing for the badge. And the Manchester United fans generally, I think there's been lots of spells over the last few years where they can't say that they've had that from the players. And for me now, we're just following the same cycle again. Louis van Gaal, I think they finished 3 places higher and got 6 points more than they did the season before when he came in. Looks like they're making progress. Then the season after, he's lost the dressing room. Jose Mourinho wins 3 trophies in his eyes. Season after, he's lost the dressing room. And we saw it with Solskjaer as well, where when he was there on a temporary basis, they were absolutely flying. They had that season where they finished second, albeit a long way off first, and it felt like progress was being made. And then the next season again, he's lost the dressing room. So this is the same pattern that keeps happening within Manchester United, year upon year. Different manager, kind of the same players, same people in the dressing room, and the structure from the above has been the same throughout the whole time as well, pretty much as well. So the problems at Manchester United run deeper than on the pitch, but on the pitch is kind of the accumulation of all these years, all these weeks of discontent and fractious relationships, and that's what you get on a Saturday when you watch them play.
Yeah, and even going into the season, it was interesting because we were talking on the transfer shows and we were saying that some of the signings that they made, it's like, okay, they're making progress. You can see what Ten Hag is trying to do, the football he's trying to play. He had a statement signing in Onana, the type of keeper that he wanted. But now that most of the signings haven't really worked under him. Some of the players that used to do really well in Rashford and Fernandes haven't been consistent this season. I think there's just so much. There's been so many stories and so many things that have gone wrong for Ten Hag this season, and it just seems like this is the next one.
Yeah. According to sources, the players think Ten Hag simply wants them to run more. So, James, are they?
Well, the stats actually seem to back up the Manchester United manager. On average this season, they cover 110 kilometres per game, which ranks them 12th of the 20 Premier League clubs. But against Newcastle, they cover the least amount of distance they have all season. Only 20 teams this season have covered less than United's 103.4 kilometres against Newcastle. Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial, they were hooked after just 61 minutes, having had close to 0 positive impact on the match. But across the pitch, United were metaphorically miles behind Newcastle, whose pressing was absolutely brilliant. It's something that Erik ten Hag's side have really struggled with this season. They rank in the bottom half in the 3 key areas: total pressures resulting in turnovers, and pressures resulting in turnovers in the final third. And in Saturday's match, Newcastle won the ball back 35 times in the middle of the pitch. Compare that to United, who managed to do it just 13 times. A 1-0 defeat, but for many United fans, it actually felt like the most disappointing performance of the season. Alan Shearer posted after the match, only one United wanted and deserved to win, and that was Newcastle United.
Does it? But I have some sympathy, some empathy for Erik ten Hag here, because no manager goes out and says, look, lads, I don't want you to run really much today. Don't go pressing them. Just take it easy. Don't bother tracking back either. You'd be saying those messages to him.
Yeah.
So what it is they're not carrying out those orders on the pitch here. But in some ways, the harsh reality of football is it's cheaper to get rid of a manager than it is to get rid of a whole squad, isn't it?
Yeah, and it must be really confusing for him because in the game against Galatasaray, they actually played really well. Yes, they conceded 3 goals, but going forward, the team was really up for it. You could tell that game meant a lot for them. And going into this game, you would think, okay, Newcastle away, it's going to be a tough game, but everyone needs to work. And Newcastle had a difficult result midweek, so they both almost wanted to bounce back. And Newcastle were the only team that really looked up for it, even though they have injuries and even though that they have setbacks in their team. So it's been confusing to see, the likes of Rashford and Martial, players that, you'd lean on in recent years to say, okay, you've been here for years now. We need some motivation. We need some work rate, even if you're not scoring goals. And it just doesn't seem like they're up for it right now. But I don't know whether, because I was saying to my friends, I don't know whether he's told them to not do that, because Rashford in previous years, whether he's scoring goals or not, he's normally the one that's always going to be working. But it doesn't seem like he's doing that now.
Do you not think like team selections and stuff and tactics are confusing though? Like Rashford playing on the right-hand side, we've all known for years that it's not really his most effective position. He's kind of been shoehorned in there to keep him in the team.
But could you
so
drop
Garnacho can play. No,
after the Everton game?
Leave Rashford out. He's off form at the moment. It's almost like they're trying to shoehorn too many people in. And I look at the team selection week on week with Manchester United. At one point, they're playing the Leicester City centre-back partnership of 5 years ago. It's always muddled. I don't think he knows his best team. They've signed Amrabat, can't get him in the team. They've signed Mason Mount, they can't get him in the team. I know they've had injury problems as well and had to play players out of position. But every time I look at Manchester United's 11, I'm not surprised by what I see on the pitch, because I look at it before the game and think, that looks disjointed, it looks lopsided, there's no cohesive plan there. And from what they were last season, I just think you can already say that they've gone backwards, and it did feel like they were making genuine progress last season. So the whole situation is worrying.
In the debit column, though, for Erik Ten Hag, is this idea that Sam floated that perhaps his buys haven't been what they could have been. I mean, if Onana, Anthony and others had been the shining examples in the team, people have gone, all right, okay, I see what he's trying to do here. And this is good going forward. But the fact that it hasn't, in fact, they've possibly been the worst.
And now he's almost leaning on players like Kobbie Mainoo now, who's a youngster, 18 years old, and obviously he's been incredible for them since he's come into the starting lineup. But you'd expect it from players that, like you said, have come in the summer and make that immediate impact, almost set the tone for what they want to achieve this season, because they look so far off of what they were last season, and we thought that they were going to be able to bridge the gap with the transfer window that they had. Yes, they've had injuries, but we've said in the past, Newcastle have had loads of injuries. You can see the way Eddie Howe still wants the team to play. Liverpool, City, there's so many teams, but I think there's just a disconnect with what he wants the team to achieve and what they want for themselves, on top of the fact that, there's still so much drama surrounding United, and I think that noise just doesn't help.
But who's that? If I asked you, who is Manchester United's talisman? Who is Manchester United's best player at the moment? I bet neither of you could name one. I don't know who it is. Like Liverpool is Salah, Man City is, obviously they've got a ton of good players, but it's Haaland. Who is Manchester United's main man? Who do they look to stand up and be there when they need something? But I don't think there's that player there. I
mean, he's obviously made Bruno captain for that type of reason, because he's the type of player that will lead by example, and he does get the key goals and get the assists as well. I think it's unfortunate for him that Højlund's getting all the goals in the Champions League and hasn't been able to replicate that in the Premier League. Rashford is not in form, but he is the type of player that normally is able to pull them out of whatever they're going through. But because of these things that all happen at the same time, it's difficult for him. And when you're hearing, the noise of they don't running and stuff like that, last season they were doing the exact same thing, because we heard about Ronaldo talking about the amount of running they had to do when they lost against Brentford. Ten Hag joined in with the running, so it's not something they haven't been doing. But because they're losing now, it's like, okay, we don't want to run, or maybe that's what they've been saying.
Yeah. Instead of sing when you're winning, whinge when you're losing. Is that what it is? You'll be hoping that this bad run or continues, won't you, Sam? Because it's Chelsea next up tomorrow. James, what have you found out ahead of this one?
Well, Rob, in the Premier League this season, United have won 8 and lost 6, and there is a real pattern emerging when it comes to where Erik Ten Hag's team are getting their points. And it's not against sides in the top half of the Premier League table. Played 5, lost 5. Those defeats coming away at Arsenal, Newcastle and Tottenham, and then also at home against Brighton and Man City. All 8 of those wins this season have come against teams in the bottom half of the table. Tomorrow, as you say, they take on Chelsea, who have just crept their way into the top 10. And United fans will be hoping to avoid this run continuing as they bid to bounce back from what was a truly miserable night on Saturday at Newcastle.
OK, so put this into context. Victory, will people say that's just paper over the cracks? A draw, will the misery continue? And a defeat, is that unthinkable against Chelsea?
I think they need to win, especially when you look at the result that they had in the fixture last season. I think they won 4-1 against a Chelsea side that were obviously struggling. But if they're not able to win this game, then that shows how low they've come from that moment where, you know, they were on the rise and United fans were so optimistic with what they could achieve coming into this season. So yeah, I think it's a must-win game against a team that also has shown some inconsistencies this season.
I think with Chelsea though, I think there's kind of let them off a little bit because you can see what they're doing. You can see Pochettino even in a short space of time. I think there is a kind of a style of play. You'll know better than me, but there is a style of play there. With Chelsea, there's almost mitigating circumstances because of the high turnover of players. And everyone talks about how much money Chelsea have spent. Manchester United have spent a lot of money over the last few years, and they're not really at the moment any better than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. So it's a huge game, but every game's massive for Manchester United at the moment because they need to start pushing towards that top 4 because it's easy to fall away. There's other teams in this league now that are form teams that are pushing towards the top 4 that weren't pushing towards the top 4 in the past. The worrying thing is for Manchester United, you know, even when they've won games, I think 7 of those 8 wins have been by 1 goal, and you know they're muddling through games against teams that really they should be beating comfortably. Now I know there's no easy games in the Premier League, but when Manchester United are winning, you know, they go into places and they're winning 1-0. They beat Luton 1-0 at home a few weeks ago. It's not convincing, so I kind of feel like when they come up against anyone good or up against someone in Europe, they struggle. Against the teams in the lower reaches of the league, they're winning, but that's a struggle as well. So that's the worrying thing for Manchester United. Depending on how you look at where Chelsea are at the moment, it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow night.
Thank you all for watching. Subscribe to the channel to not miss anything. Leave your like and your comment. That is very important for the channel growth. Until the next video.